Hey there Guardians, welcome back to the channel. There's only a couple of weeks left before the final shape, and this is very likely to be my final build before the release of said expansion. So we're going to finish with a fun build. So right off the bat, I just want to be clear that when I say a fun build, this isn't designed for endgame content such as Grandmasters and Legendary Onslaught, the later weeks of Pantheon, etc. It is one to just go out and enjoy the game with. And it's built around one of possibly the worst regarded exotics in the game, and that is the Radiant Dance Machines on the Hunter. Now, the reason that this is such a poorly regarded exotic is that basically it's useless unless you heavily build into its exotic perk, which is called the Dance. And what this means is that if we dodge within 15 meters of an enemy, we are granted a buff called multi-dodge ready. We can then dodge an unlimited amount of time for 6 seconds, however, kills extend the buff duration by 5 seconds up to 11. And every time we get a kill while multi-dodge ready is active, it continues to extend and extend and extend. So if we can dodge pretty much endlessly, why is this seen as such a poor exotic? Well, basically it's because it doesn't interact with a number of different mods, such as Bomber, Distribution, Dynamo, Outreach, etc. However, what it does interact with is the Gambler's Dodge. So we can have endless melees. So with that said, let's take a look at our subclass. We're going to be using a Strand Hunter, which means we're limited to the Silk Strike Super. I'm not going to go into full detail on this, however, all the information is up on the screen now. For our abilities, we're going to take a Gambler's Dodge, which means if we dodge within the vicinity of enemies, we will regain our melee charge. For our melee, we have no other options than the Threaded Spike, but this is actually what we want for this build, so not going to complain. So the Threaded Spike fires off a rope dart that bounces around, hitting up to 9 enemies, severing and dealing a reasonable amount of damage. And then for our grenade, we're going to take the Shackle Grenade, which suspends targets it hits, splits off into 2 more mini bowlers, and suspends again. For our aspects, we're a little limited by functionality, as Threaded Spectre doesn't work with the Radiant Dance Machines, and Ensnaring Slam actually ends the effect. Therefore, we won't be using either of those. Instead, we're going to take Whirling Maelstrom, which personally I think is the strongest of all of the Strand Hunter aspects. And this means that when we destroy a tangle, we summon a Whirling Tangle, or as a good friend of mine calls it, a Whirlybird. And this seeks out enemies and generally causes more damage than you'd expect. And then we're going to take Widow's Silk, which gives us an additional grenade charge. Also, if we were using a Grapple Grenade, it allows us to create a Grapple Tangle. For our fragments, we're going to begin with Thread of Ascent, which refills our weapons whenever we use our grenade. It also grants bonus to handling, reload speed, improves the reload duration multiplier, and gives us a boost of airborne effectiveness for 15 seconds. Because we're using a Shackle Grenade, we're going to take a Thread of Wisdom. This means that killing suspended enemies will create an Orb of Power. That Orb of Power grants 2.5% to your super energy, however it does incur a 10-second cooldown. Next, we're going to take a Thread of Warding, where if we pick up an Orb of Power, we get Woven Mail for 10 seconds. And finally, a Thread of Propagation, where if we get a powered melee kill, it will grant us Unravelling Rounds for 8 seconds. Because this is a fun build, we don't need to be quite so strict with regards to our armour stats. So therefore, all I'm going to say is Resilience, Discipline and Mobility, treat these as your high priority stats, try to get all 3 above 80, and then Recovery, Strength and Intellect are your low priority stats, and just keep these above 30 so you don't inflict yourself with any penalties. For our mods, we're going to begin on the helmet with a Strand Solar Dual Siphon. Means if we get multi-kills with either a solar or a strand weapon, that will generate an orb of power. Next we're going to take a hands-on, which gives us improved super energy gains from melee kills. And we're going to take a powerful friends, where any allies within 18 meters will receive an armor charge whenever we pick up an power. On our arms, we're going to take 3 copies of heavy-handed. Heavy-handed means if we get a powered melee kill, it spawns an orb of power. But because we're using 3 copies, those orbs of power now give us 1.25% of our super energy instead of 0.8. But the real reason we want 3 copies is this also reduces the cooldown between orb generation from 10 seconds to 1 second. On the chest, you might want to consider a melee resist, but it's really completely up to you. On our legs, we're going to begin with a recuperation, which returns 70 HP of health whenever we pick up an orb of power. We're then going to take Orbs of Restoration, which grants 10% energy to whichever of our abilities has the least amount of energy when we pick up an orb. And we're going to take an Insulation, which grants us 4% class ability energy anytime we pick up an orb of power. And this brings us finally onto our class item, where we're going to begin with a Reaper, which means if we get a kill within 10 seconds of using our class ability, it will spawn an orb of power. And then we're going to take 2 copies of Powerful Attraction. The reason for 2 is that this means that we will collect orbs within a larger radius that expands out to 18.5 meters. Also, because of the limitations of Radiant Dance Machines, most of the other useful mods on the class item are rendered completely useless. For those of you that use D2 Armor Picker, this is the amount of armor energy we've used on our mods. On the helmet, we've used 7, leaving you 3. On our arms, we've used 9, leaving 1. We haven't used any on our chest, as it's entirely dealer's choice. On our legs, we've used 4, so there are 6 remaining. And on our class item, we've used 7, leaving 3. And this is the last time we're ever going to be using the Season 23 artifacts, so let's squeeze some fun out of it. We're going to begin with Flame, Fibre and Freeze, which gives us access to the Solar Strand and Solar Stasis dual siphons. We're going to take Flint Striker, where if we score multiple precision hits or score multi-kills with solar weapons, we will be granted Radiant. We're going to take Kindling Trigger, so while we're Radiant, our solar weapons will apply Scorched to unscorched targets. We're going to take Torch, which means that while we're Radiant, we will deal 5% increased weapon damage against any enemies that are affected by a Strand or Stasis debuff, i.e. Unravelled, Severed or Suspended. And we're going to take Unravelling Orbs, so when we pick up an Orb of Power, it will grant our Strand weapons Unravelling rounds for 7 seconds. And then a Horde Shuttle, so if we deal sufficient weapon damage to an unravelled enemy, it will spawn a Threadling. However, there is a half-second cooldown between Threadling spawns. Next we're going to take Rays of Precision, which means that while we're Radiant, solar precision kills will cause an ignition. Next, Wished Intervene, so while our super energy is above 80% but not fully charged, ability kills will spawn 3 supercharged orbs of power, each of which will grant 7.14% energy to our super. And then, last but by no means least, Dragon's Bite, so when we break a combatant's shield with a stasis or strand weapon, it has a chance to suspend or freeze. Weapon selection is really down to your personal preference. However, in the kinetic slot you do want something strand, doesn't matter if it's primary or special. In our energy slot we want something that is solar and that can do precision damage. But again, it can be special or primary, doesn't matter. And then in the heavy slot, either something that is solar or something that is strand. Any perks, whatever you enjoy using, that's the one for you. And this brings us on to the incredibly difficult gameplay loop. Are you ready? Step 1. Dodge near enemy. Step 2. Throw powered melee. Repeat. Okay, so I am taking the piss a little bit there, but genuinely that is how simple the gameplay loop is. You dodge, Gambler's Dodge gives you your melee back. You throw your powered melee, that extends Radiant Dance Machine. It keeps going round and round and round. Also, because we're using Threaded Spike, we're severing everything. Because we have triple heavy-handed, we're generating orbs of power every second. Those orbs of power give us a host of benefits, including Unraveling Orbs and Woven Mail, as well as all of our ability regenerations. It's just good fun. Is it suitable for endgame? Probably not without some very considerate gameplay. But hey, who cares? There's 2 weeks left. Let's enjoy the last of the Season of the Witch. There we have it, Guardians. That is how to turn the Radiant Dance Machine into a really good fun build. If you've enjoyed this video and are interested in more Destiny 2 content, please drop a like, maybe even a subscribe. You'll really be helping the channel grow. Consider heading over to the Discord and becoming part of the community. But until next time, Guardian, whatever you're doing, I hope you have a fantastic day.